I have a question and I need an answer. What if we didn't think? Think about that. No, stop. Don't think about it. Then again, think about it. Scratching my head. No, don't think about it. Now think about it. What would it really matter if we could think or if we couldn't think? Think about that. If we couldn't think, would that give life any less or any more purpose than what it is? And by thinking, does that give life any more or any less purpose than what it already is? Think about that. Nah, don't think about it. Yeah, think about it. For the sake of thinking, think about it. What is purpose? And does it need to be validated by your thinking? I mean, really, think about an atom or any piece of matter, even before matter was given a name. Now think about that small piece of matter floating around in the vacuum of space. I mean, what purpose would we have for the matter floating around in the vacuum of outer space? Could our thinking give a piece of matter floating around in the vacuum of outer space? By us thinking about a piece of matter floating around in a vacuum of outer space, does it give that piece of matter any more purpose, whether we think about it or not? Just think about that. And if the piece of matter, if it doesn't have the ability to think, does that have any more or less effect on the fact that it's still a piece of matter just floating around in the vacuum of outer space? Think about it. You know, this is a deep reflection because thinking about my channel and everything, thinking about the fact that I can't force anybody to do anything. In a way, when I think about it, all of my efforts ultimately, and I hate to say it because sometimes the truth hurts because we have an ego inside of us. And sometimes that ego doesn't want to face the fact that all of our efforts are really in vain. When you think about it at the core, essential element of everything, the quintessence, if you would, everything that we do, it has a bit of purposelessness to it, for the lack of a better term, or pointlessness to it, because it doesn't change the fact about anything. You see, it's cold outside. So whether I'm thinking about it being cold outside or whether I'm not thinking about it, it doesn't change the fact that it's cold outside. And the more I think about it, I realize that there really is no separation between people who we call autistic and people who have like the mental capabilities that we possess. Because when you think about it, a person who is autistic and a person who is considered normal, meaning that you have like all of your cognitive abilities to question the things in the world around you, you have to say to yourself, does that really change the fact of what I'm saying right now? Because think about it. A kid who is autistic or someone who is mentally disabled or even someone in a coma, they may not be questioning the world around them, but does that change the fact that the world around them exists as it is for the sake of it is what it is? Now, the only difference between people with like autism and mental disabilities, they don't question. Like animals, for instance, they don't question the origin of the universe. Now, with all of our thinking abilities, that is still the most mysterious question that has yet to be answered. You know, since the beginning of time, since time memorial, we have had countless philosophers who have left many deep writings, Gnostic writings, but still, two questions remain. What is the origin of everything? And what happens after we die? Now, I consider myself a wise person. You listening to me right now, you may consider yourself a wise person. But at the end of the day, at the end of the night, if philosophy is meant to get to the bottom of the origin of life and what happens after this life, because that answer is still left unanswered, or because that question is still left unanswered, it's kind of like a cruel joke in a way. It's like a smack upside our mental cognitive abilities. Because after doing all of this reasoning and philosophizing and pontificating about things, we are still at point zero, no different than a person in a coma or an infant or someone with autism or some type of mental disability. They don't know the answer to that question. And even we who consider ourselves philosophers, we don't know the answer to that question, to those questions about the origin of everything and what happens to us after we die. So when you think about it, It's like having some track shoes, the state of the art track shoes, and another person having a pair of shoes from Payless. And you running a race against a F-15 fighter jet. Or better yet, you running against a Lamborghini or a Cheetah or a Ford Mustang. The shoes that you have on, no matter how much you paid for them, they doing you no more justice than someone with a cheap pair of shoes. Because no matter how much design went into the pair of shoes, the state-of-the-art rubber and shoelaces that you have on, it's not going to make you run faster than a cheetah or a Mustang. So really, you wasted all of that money, and the person with the Payless shoes, they fell short just like you did with the expensive shoes. So basically what I'm saying is, even though we have these deep minds, it's entertaining, I get it. But ultimately, I don't want to say our quest is pointless, and maybe I'm just being real. I have I have emotions too. Emotions is what make us who we are. I have a ego just like everybody else. So I'm just being honest. I don't even want to say that our quest is in vain, but that's what it seems like at times. And maybe it is. The only difference between me admitting that our quest possibly could be in vain versus someone who don't even gather these type of questions in our mind or pose these type of questions. I just said it. I just said the difference. That's the only difference. We ponder on these things and they don't. But the question that was raised still remains unanswered. So it's really no difference between the dead and the living, except the living asks questions and the dead doesn't. Ultimately, we are in physical bodies. The dead is just unable to think beyond. But then you have to say, are you really thinking beyond? Because if your thinking began when you was born and it's truncated, meaning the furthest that you can think is what happens when we die, and then it stops. And then the beginning of your thinking, your quest for knowledge began, let's say around age 4. Because that's about the age where people come into knowledge of themselves. And that's typically the furthest that people can think, going back to around the age 4, right? So really, is your quest for knowledge really going beyond? Think about it. Or is it in a box, still in a box? Because remember, we only can think back to around age 4. And 4 represents a 4-sided box. And that's around the age when our thinking abilities becomes boxed. At age 2, we are more open-minded. Think about that. We abstract. We want to touch everything. We want to stick our hands in the electric socket. Someone tells us to stop. And then around age 3, another wall is put up. And then at age 4, the completion of the box is finished. So that's why around age 4, our memory begins. And that's why I say, can we really say that we are thinking beyond, or are we thinking to the point where we reach the edge of the box? Now, we would like to think that we are thinking beyond. You know, I would, you would. You know, it's a great positive thought to say, I'm thinking beyond everybody else. And in a way, in a sense, you are. At least you are questioning, you know. But you have to say to yourself, are my questions doing the question itself any justice? Because the only difference is I'm questioning, but I still don't have the grand answer, just like the dead. They don't have the grand answer. And I don't have the grand answer. It's like kicking at a door, a metal door, an airlocked metal door, and you kicking at it hard. Boom, boom. You kicking and you knocking. And somebody else is just sitting there, and they not even trying to kick the door open or break through the airlock. But you got all this hope and courage and I can do it, I can do it. So you kicking the door, but your kicking is in vain. Your efforts are in vain, but your ego is telling you that you will achieve the escape of breaking out of the door. And someone else is sitting there saying, he'll never do it. But at least you tried, right? That's what you tell yourself. And you feel encouraged by trying, right? And the person that's in the same situation, they say to themselves, I just accept my position. I'm in a box. I'm not going to try to kick myself out of it. And that's that's the picture I'm trying to paint. It's almost as if we question these things because we have these egos to want to be free. And, you know, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. It's a sign that you do have a soul. But is having a soul in this world any different than someone who doesn't have a soul? Because we are locked in the same prison with the dead. Make no mistake about it. Now, I wouldn't lie to you and make you feel like you have escaped, because as long as you are in a physical body, you are in the same predicament with the dead. It's just that you are aware of what's going on. That's the only difference between you and the human prison bars, right? That's the only difference. So, in a way, you gotta say to yourself, these bodies that we live in, all of our bodies are possessed with something. Think about it. Your body, it has its own brain. Your brain, it has two functions. One function is to keep your body alive. So you have like all of these involuntary mechanics going on in your brain that's keeping your heart beating, keeping your heart rhythm going. You know, it makes you breathe at night. I mean, you do things that you don't even have to think about. That part of your body, that part of you, is it you or is it something else? How can I say it? The body that you think is yours, it's possessed with something that's causing it to have these involuntary actions. And then you are stuffed inside of that body right alongside another body. Not even talking about the physical body. I'm talking about the inner parts of your physical body. And the more you think about it, you can't even say that your body is yours. Think about it. Because when you die, your body deteriorates. Somebody can take your body, mummify you, cremate you, do whatever they want to with you. You just say it's your body because you are locked inside of it. You see, your body didn't claim you, you claimed your body. At a certain age, you became aware of self, and then you started claiming that body. It's almost like recognizing yourself in the mirror. So upon the age when you started having face recognition, that's when you started claiming your body. Your body didn't claim you. And that's where the whole system of lockdown began. You fell in love with your body, and then you accepted the involuntary body that controls your body when you're not even thinking about it. Think about it. You claiming something that doesn't need you to claim it, and it will still work. You have to feed it because you are a slave to it. You live because you are a slave to the fact that you claimed something that didn't claim you. So you take care of your body as if it's your child. Because you started to correlate you with your body instead of saying that I'm a spirit and I don't need a body. At a certain age, when you had face recognition, you accepted that you have a body, and then you started feeding the body. You started feeding those involuntary actions and urges. You started feeding it hunger and all of your lower desires. You just feed into it, and you feed it, and you feed it. So over time, you started to fall in love with the flesh. And the more you fell in love with it, the more the urges of the flesh increased. You see? And you got to say to yourself, what did your flesh ever do for you? You see? And when you think about that, your flesh didn't do anything for you. You see? Your flesh doesn't save you from falling. Your flesh doesn't, really doesn't do anything. You make it do everything. You decide, I'm going to get up and go somewhere. I'm going to stay in the bed today. Your flesh isn't doing anything. Now, the involuntary part of it is, but everything else that you're doing far as your flesh is concerned, that's you making the flesh do what it does. You see what I'm saying? The flesh, in other words, is getting over on all of us. We carrying it around. We giving it a purpose. We making us have a purpose. Our flesh is not making us have a purpose. If you decided right now to stop playing this video and just lay on your bed and never move again and just die, then guess what? That's what the flesh would have to do. It's many people who have just starved themselves to death. It's many people who have jumped from 10-story buildings. And there are many people who have decided to just carry the flesh around. And, who decided to be a slave to the flesh because they claimed the flesh never claimed them. Think about it. I know some of you disagreeing right now. Think about it. Better yet, I like to bag everything up with metaphors. You didn't decide to be the person that you are. Your mother and father got together. Your father, he saw a woman one day. He liked her. Your mother, he did the things that he was supposed to do, and he won your mother over. And guess what? She bent over for him. Yeah, that's all it is. He said the right words. He took her out to eat. And then later on, he reached over, kissed her on the cheek, unbuttoned her blouse. They started necking and petting, and before you know it, you know what happens. He penetrated her. And then the rest of the story. 9 months later, you were born. You didn't ask to be here. And then you grew to a certain age and you claimed your flesh. I mean, you didn't even know. You can't remember anything when you was 2, 1, 6 months. It was around the age 4. You started claiming your flesh. When you was 1 year old, you didn't know your foot from your ass. Now all of a sudden, you know everything. You're so smart. When actually, you are nothing. None of us. We're absolutely nothing. Now that's not to say that we are not special, because we are special. We are special because we don't understand. And that's what makes us so special. Because if we understood, we wouldn't be special. Isn't that what the word special is? Isn't that what it means? Something is special about you. Have anybody ever said that to you? So I'm not making this video as a put down to anybody. I'm just saying you are special. And that's why I used the analogy at the beginning of the video about the kids who we call special. They may not question things like we do, but they are special because they are different. They are special because we don't understand them. That's why we call them special. And in the same regards, you are special because you don't understand the world. You don't understand the origin, just like they don't understand things and they don't question everything. The same for you. You're no different. You don't know anything. Just imagine if there is life in other galaxies, they would look at all of us like people with autism. We don't know anything. They would say this whole entire human race is special. They would say all of us should be running around in the Special Olympics. Think about it. All of the years of philosophizing and all of these different writings, they all come to the same conclusion. As much as colleges and universities have been around, they still have physics. And the furthest they can go back is dark matter. They can't explain to you what it is. You see? They get stuck. That's why they have quantum physics and all of these theoretical sciences. These theoretical sciences and quantum physics and the likes, they don't invent anything. It's just a bunch of theories. What did Einstein invent? Just a bunch of theories. You can't eat a theory and live off of it. If you out in the desert, what good is a quantum physics book going to do you? Just a bunch of theories. So what I'm saying is, in essence, we all are just special. We don't understand. Our questions are in vain. Not all of them, because some questions, you can research and find the answers to. But the ultimate questions: what is the origin of life? What happens to us after death? Nobody knows that answer. We say we do. We want to, be the Lord over the information. We want to pontificate and point people out and point our fingers at everybody. And we want to stand in the front of a university classroom at a podium. We want to sound intelligent, speaking with a British accent, like we have all of these scholarly degrees. Think about it. All of this whole world is ran by people with degrees and PhDs and scholar this and all of these initials at the end of their name. And the world is still in the same shape that it has always been. War, famine, childbirth, death, disease, pestilence. It's just a cycle of life. And it's been going on like this. It's been going on like this. And the same question: who is God? What happens when we die? That's it.